Welcome, Bronco Nation. My game review for Boise State versus Fresno State. Boise State losing this game 30-37. The battle of the milk can going Fresno's way. Now, you're going to have to bear with me today. My voice is almost gone. I'm not in my normal studio, and my sleep cycle is gone to crap right now. I'm really, really tired. And that's because I ended up traveling this week to the Liberty game, Liberty versus La Tech. Of course, Liberty, my other school. And I always go to one game each for Boise State and Liberty. I went to the Boise State versus UCF game, and I went to this Liberty versus La Tech game. And interestingly enough, just finished watching Hank Bachmeier play. So all that to be said, you need to give me a little bit of grace today because I'm going to try and keep this short, very direct to the point. Like I said, it wasn't in my normal studio space for this video. Lighting's all weird, and my voice is definitely on the fritz. So I'm going to try and make this video a little bit shorter. Just wanted to say some things. I was thought about delaying it, waiting a little bit, but this is a loss we need to talk about now. And I got some things I want to say. And so I'm going to do the video now, and again, just give me a little bit of grace with the voice and the lighting and everything. So Boise State loses this game 30-37. If you remember, my score prediction for this game was Boise State 31, Florida State, Fresno State, FSU, Fresno State 34. So pretty close, actually, overall. It's about a few points off, about 4 points off on the final result, but right on the edge. And all the things I said in my video that Boise State could win this game. I did. I said they have all the tools. They showed versus Wyoming that they have all the tools needed to win this game. But I laid out some things that were going to lead to Boise State losing the game. And every single one of those things happened. And we're going to talk about that. So we're going to grade the offense, the defense, the special teams, and how Boise State did not, or did, but it's just a little bit of peek ahead. They did not apply my 3 keys to the game, and why Boise State lost this game, and what it signifies for Boise State. Because you know that I've been calling for a coaching change since Memphis, so this game doesn't change my mind. It definitely solidifies that point more, but it does signify something, I think, for the fan base overall, and that is, versus when we played Wyoming, things were different. There was a change in approach. Defensively, obviously, much different strategy came in, and Boise State played very, very well defensively. But offensively, even though dogmatically they seem to be sticking to at least attempting the 2-quarterback system, they definitely seem to be aware of the impact that system was having and wanting to give their quarterback an attempt to at least settle into the game on drives by themselves. And I thought they would learn the positive lessons from that, because when the quarterbacks had full drives where one quarterback was in charge for almost the whole drive, you saw Boise State scoring. 4 out of the 5 times that they scored, they had one quarterback pretty much the entire drive on the field. And every time that they scored, they actually had a quarterback on pretty much the whole time. So for Boise State, they should have learned that lesson. They should have learned the lesson that leaving one quarterback out there for the majority of the drive is going to lead to success. But they didn't. They went back to the 50-50 quarterback rotation. It happened after Madison's pick. Then they overreacted. They went away from him, back to Taylor Green. Taylor Green throws a pick, and now they have no idea what to do. They're back and forth. And that's what cost Boise State this game. The reason Boise State threw those 2 interceptions is because of the 2-quarterback system. It's not just the gameplay. The gameplay is devastating to a quarterback's rhythm to come in and out like that. I mean, Max Madison threw that interception coming off the bench cold on a 3rd down where he feels like he's got to perform, and he throws a pick. Taylor Green throws a pick on a deep pass that he's not been throwing to receivers the whole game. That's not what he's been doing. That's not what he's been doing for a couple of weeks now. He doesn't have the rhythm. They're not on the same page. They don't have that chemistry. And so, of course, on a deep ball, he underthrows it, and it's a pick. It's already a trend for him to underthrow the passes, so he really has to have that chemistry with the receiver and have the awareness of the game, and he doesn't. He's not going to be able to achieve that with the 2-quarterback rotation. But beyond what's happening in the game, you have to realize that this is translating into practice as well. In practice, they're also both splitting reps. Nobody on that offense is getting to develop any kind of chemistry with either of these quarterbacks. And especially when you have a couple guys coming back from injury like this with Penry and Bolt, and you're getting new guys rolled into the rotation, Now you've got even more of a cluster where nobody is having a chance to develop that one-on-one relationship with the quarterback. And that is so important between a quarterback and a wide receiver. And if that gets thrown off at all, you're going to see a major impact on the way the game is played. And that's what we're seeing with Boise State. So the two quarterback system for Boise State continuing to throw havoc. And it's not just the fact that Boise State's running it. It's the fact that they saw the success of not doing it this way. The two quarterback system in a specific scheme can be run successfully with Maddox Madsen as the base and Taylor Green coming in as a rotation. And Boise State did that. They showed that they can and they want to do that. But they didn't. And you have to ask why. And I think it's because this head coaching staff has no idea what it's doing. And it's time for a change. And I said that after the Memphis game. Now, what this loss does prove is that the Wyoming game was a fluke. And I said that was going to be the case. We said Wyoming was great. Boise State coming off of a bye week to get that win felt fantastic. They did a lot of things right. But was that intentional? And I said, I don't know. I said that in my game preview. I said, you don't know if that's intentional. Running one running back because you had an injury. That wasn't intentional. They had to do that. The two quarterback system, Maddox Madsen just played well. He forced them out of the two quarterback system. He forced them into allowing him to stay in for elongated drives because he was playing well. He was playing well despite the fact that they wanted to pull him out. He didn't let them because he was playing so well. So again, you had to ask how much of that was Boise State making adjustments and how much of it was the circumstances of the other team. Defensively for Boise State last week looked incredible, but also that was Wyoming's offense, and their quarterback looked off from near the beginning of the game where he took a big hit, and he just didn't look the same the rest of the game. And they also don't have, a reliable, steady. I mean, they have a steady offense, but not a dynamic offense. And Boise State, the full bye week to prepare, and a quarterback that was off, were able to look great. But the question was that Boise State? Or was that the circumstances that they were put in that allowed them to look that? And I think we can clearly say coming off of this game that it was either a fluke or it was circumstantial. And Boise State is still the same Boise State that they've been all season. And they're the Boise State team that is now sitting at 4-5 with a very almost certain loss to Air Force at the end of the season to get to 6. And they are going to have not upset, but to avoid mistakes, which is something they've not really been able to do, to get to a winning season this year. New Mexico should be a win for them, but Utah State is not a given. And Boise State is very much looking at a potential 5-7 season to end 2023, and it's not the way that anybody thought the third year of the new coaching staff would work out. And the fact that it is leading towards this should cause people to make major questions and to push for major changes. Genty's out today, but Boise State got a couple of key wide receivers back. Austin Bolt, Chase Penry, both of those guys back from injuries either suffered preseason or early on in the season. So it's great to see both of them out there and to see Boise State actually fleshing out its wide receiver room. You got multiple guys taking catches today. Bowen's actually performing well, had a touchdown reception. Penry getting into the game with 2 catches. Strawn, a nice catch and run. So you started to see the wide receiver room starting to open up a little bit. But the main concern for Boise State should be the fact that nobody could seem to get the ball to McAllister. Yeah, the defense was keying in on him, and that was really exposing the lack of chemistry between the wide receivers and the quarterbacks here, because the defense was making the windows very, very tight and the margin of error very, very small. And so there wasn't all of this room and space for Eric McAllister to be able to improvise and to make up for small errors in the throw. And today, there were a lot of throws that were not exactly on target. Eric McAllister double covered, and a couple of ones that he could have caught for long plays that would have been a big impact. But again, it shows that lack of chemistry. It shows that lack of chemistry that a receiver as good as Eric McAllister is having multiple drops or just having balls thrown either beyond his reach, or he's not running the right route or the route at the speed that he was expected to. And all of that goes back to the chemistry between the wide receivers and the quarterbacks that isn't there because of the 2-quarterback system, which is Andy Avalos. And again, all goes back to him. And I know that the fan base was really hoping that things had changed. We had a different Boise State team. Everybody was saying, well, we can cool the talk on the Andy Avalos. And I said, no. I said, Andy Avalos is still in the hot seat. He still deserves to be gone. Hopefully, this shows that there's a change, and hopefully we can move in a direction where at some point we could start saying that he can stay. But this clearly shows that that's not the case. They're still the same Boise State team. And the biggest question that I have for Boise State today is why did they throw the ball so much? Helani was great. 79 yards rushing, was averaging over 4 yards a touch, had a touchdown, and they kept going to the air unnecessarily. Why didn't they pound the rock? Why didn't they pound the rock, get Taylor Green's legs involved? But George Halani was doing it on the run. Boise State's offense was matching up. There was a couple of plays where Fresno State came down and dropped Halani for a loss, but not a lot of them. Why did Boise State not lean on Halani, who plays big in these Fresno State games? He loves this rivalry. He had a good game. 60 yards receiving, 61 yards receiving, 79 yards rushing, 100 total yards of offense. He is obviously hungry. He wants to make up for the first half of the season. Why are we going to the air with a quarterback system that's inconsistent, that you know isn't proven, with a wide receiver room that doesn't have the chemistry when you have proven success in the running game? Why? I just think I think the answer just has to be Andy Avalos. I just don't see any other reason for this roster to be performing the way that they are, besides the decisions that are being made by the coaching staff. We saw flashes from Madsen. We saw an incredible run, one of the most important and incredible runs I've ever seen by Boise State this season. I know that's a tough statement to say because Ashton Jeanty's had such incredible runs, but I mean, that was an incredible run. I mean, he was flushed out of the pocket. He made some moves in open space. He juked 2 or 3 guys out and went to the end zone for a touchdown to put Boise State in a chance to go win the game. That was amazing. So he had flashes. He had some nice long throws. He had, especially there towards the end of the game, he really started to develop that consistency towards the end of the game, where he started to finally find the guys, throw the nice, deep, strong throws that we know he's capable of on the money. We started seeing that. But I said in my game preview, I said my concern is that Boise State is going to try and do the 2 quarterback system, but also try to continue to run with Taylor Green when they know he doesn't work well in this offense. They're going to start him, which they did for a play, and then they put Max Madsen out there, but they went back and forth between them. And I said they are going to wait too long to make the shift to Max Madsen and allow him to develop the chemistry. And we saw him completely off today because of that constant rotation. And it took him forever in the game to finally really nail that down. And it really wasn't until late in the second half that he finally started to develop that consistency with his wide receivers. And by that time, it was too late. I said that. I said one of the reasons, probably the main reason we're going to lose this game, is because Boise State is going to go to Max Madsen too late. And they did. That's exactly what happened in this game. So it's very, very frustrating watching this performance, seeing the amazing plays, seeing the playmakers that we have out there, and yet still seeing the end result. And I think Bronco Nation as a whole is getting to a point where they are done. They are done with this. This is not the direction that Boise State should be going. It doesn't have to be this way. As someone it was clearly pointing out on Twitter, quite adaptly pointing out on Twitter, and it's something I've said myself as well, but this roster is too good to be going to a 5-7 or 6-6 record. This is a 9-3, 10+ win roster with a good coach. This is not a good head coach. Great defensive coordinator, great recruiter. So I've said a lot of positive things about Andy Avalos in the past, and I stand by all of those positive statements. But he is not a good head coach, and he is running this team into the ground. And we now are looking at a 4-5 team that just lost to Fresno State in devastating fashion. And he's going to look back and he's going to say, well, it was within a touchdown. We could have won, so I don't need to make any changes. No. We scored over 30 points, so I don't need to make any changes. Analytics show, no. You lost this game because of the mistakes that you caused. You caused these mistakes by putting your players in a position where they had to struggle to succeed and made mistakes. 2 picks, a pick by Jeanty and a pick by Max Madsen. Both of your quarterbacks throwing picks. Of course, I'm not surprised. What else do you expect in a 2-quarterback system than both quarterbacks making mistakes? When you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have one. When you have 2 starters, you don't have one. And neither of them is going to play like a starter, and neither of them has played like a starter in this system. Very, very, very frustrating game, obviously, for Bronco Nation. Offense overall, I'm going to grade them as a C. Defensively, also frustrating. We saw Boise State make all these great schematic changes versus Wyoming, and we said, wow, that would work. Fresno State doesn't have a running game. They're averaging 105.6 yards a game. They don't have a running game. They have a quarterback that's not a scrambler. This is great. Do that versus what you did versus Wyoming. Do it versus Fresno State. Send the blitzes, limit his time in the pocket, fluster him. All the things that Boise State did at the end of the game, but waited till the end of the game to do. There was a few blitzes scattered here and there, but after Fresno State completed a few passes versus the blitz, they dropped back into coverage. And the coverage didn't work because then he had all time to throw. He was able to calm down. He was able to develop himself and his rhythm with his receivers. And then he was making every single throw. And they weren't hard throws. I tweeted out and I said, I think a quarterback with two broken arms could make completions against this secondary right now. I mean, they were so wide open early on. Boise State's defense did well of stopping the bleed, three times forced field goals, two of those times in the red zone. So they had a couple times where they stiffened up and they stopped Fresno State. But overall, they allowed over 441 yards of offense, 303 yards passing, 138 yards rushing. And again, this is a Fresno State team that was averaging almost 100 yards a game. That's it. And they allowed almost 140 yards rushing out of them, including a nail-in-the-coffin final touchdown run, which I'm not so mad about the touchdown aspect of that because they let him score the touchdown so that they would have a chance to get the ball back and control their own clock. But they allowed a long third down run. It was a 3rd and 6, and they allowed a long third down run with multiple broken tackles. And so at that point, it was already over. They needed to let him score, and they did. So I'm not so mad about the touchdown run, but I am mad about the fact that they were able to run all over this Boise State defense. This Boise State defense was missing so many tackles. It's been an issue all season, the poor tackling, but it really reared its ugly head in this game. Poor coverage overall and a complete lack of pressure on the quarterback. Couple times they called the blitz, they got to him, especially towards the end late in the game. I mean, they got to him. They hurt him, and that's not obviously what you're going for, but they got him. They physically were damaging him with that pressure later in the game. And if that had happened earlier on, not hurting him, I'm not saying I want him to be hurt. I don't want any player to ever get hurt in what is a sport, a spectator sport. But you do want to rattle them. And if Boise State had done that earlier on in the game, versus waiting till the end of the first half and then pushing in the second half. If they had done that earlier on in the game, Fresno State may have scored. They may have gotten some passes off, but they would have been put in a situation where their quarterback would have known those hits were coming, and as they mounted, he would have started to make more and more mistakes. As we saw later in the game, we would have seen him off schedule. Boise State waited too long to do what should have been the scheme in the entire first place. And I have no idea why it was. It worked so well against them in the regular season last year. Boise State was able to beat them in large part because of that, and the year before that. Boise State's blitzing system works, and I don't know why it's their primary. I don't know why it's not their primary go-to. They know their secondary is weak. They know their secondary is young. They know that they're not able to stop the deep ball. Fresno State was just absolutely targeting the deep ball. They recognize that as a weakness, as most teams have versus Boise State, and they went after it on almost not every single play, but throughout the game, they went after that deep ball, and they made a lot of completions. They also dropped a lot of deep passes that should have been yards on top, but they went after it and it was there. Boise State could have prevented that by using the blitz. Yeah, they'd have made some short passes here and there, but they would have got those sacks. They would have rattled the quarterback. He would have started making more mistakes. He already threw one pick in the game. He would have started making more mistakes, and Boise State could have won this game, but they didn't. And I said, there's a pretty good chance that they outthink themselves and don't blitz like they're supposed to, and they'll lose. And it's another reason that they lost this game. So defensively overall, I'm giving this an F. I mean, I know that there were some good moments for them overall, but we lost this game. One of the big reasons we lost this game was because of the defense. Like I said, there were some nice moments out of them. Simpson had 12 tackles. Tubner, 7 tackles of pass defended. Again, they forced 3 field goals on drives. But Boise State's defense, and not the players so much, I mean, the missed tackles is bad, but the defensive scheme that this coaching staff came up with was a bad scheme, and it cost Boise State this game. So offense C, defense F. One more thing to note here, because I think it should be said, refereeing in this game was absolutely atrocious. The defense was not helped at all by the refereeing. And one of the most egregious refereeing calls in the game, besides the special teams call, which I'm going to talk about in a second, but one of the most egregious refereeing calls was a clear tackle where the player was down quite clearly short of the line. And the announcer said it. The fans, everybody saw it except the refs. He was down clearly short of the line to gain by over a yard, and they gave him the first down, and they were able to then go down, and I believe they scored on that drive. Again, I don't have all my notes and everything with me from this one, but on that drive, I believe that they did go down and scored, and that is a difference maker as well. So for Boise State, it was on the players, and it was on the coaching staff, and it was on the defense overall. I mean, the Boise State's defense did lose this game, but the refereeing gave Boise State no favors, and that was an egregious call. And the Mountain West has always had, for many, many years here, has had the worst referees in the country. Gloria Navarez, once she's figured out this whole conference realignment thing, our next top priority should be to get rid of the Mountain West. I believe that we share them with the Big 12, and the Big 12 notoriously has terrible refs as well. So the Big 12, Conference USA, and the Mountain West all share the same refereeing pool, and it's the lowest of the refereeing gene pools. Boise State's got to start pulling from a higher pond because these referees are making a major impact on games in a negative way, and this is an example of it a couple of times. Again, Boise State would have lost this game regardless, but the refereeing did Boise State no favors in this one either. All right, special teams, and then we'll look at the keys to the game. And I got to wrap this up because my voice is, I can really feel like it's going to go in any minute. So special teams, Boise State's focal points on special teams, their kicker and their punter, continue to be amazing. Jonah Dalmas is now the leading kicker in Boise State history and most field goals made, just past Kyle Brotzman in his last game. Had a 3 of 3, long of 52. He did everything he could to put this team in a position to win this game. Boise State did not lose this game because of Jonah Dalmas. Nobody's saying that, but he put Boise State in a position to win this game. He could, if I 100% believe if Boise State had trotted him out for a game-winning field goal, he would have made that field goal. He made a kick in very, very tight circumstances where Boise State had done a pretty terrible job of managing the clock, had called 2 running plays that did not line the ball up at all, 2 running plays with no time left and no timeouts that they could use to run him out there with time running down and settle and kick a 48-yarder from the right hash that goes in. That's tough. That is a tough hash to kick from for a kicker that's kicking right to left, right-footed kicker. That's a tough hash to kick from, and he put it inside. And I definitely believe that if necessary, he would have gone out and kicked a game-winning field goal. So incredible job of Jonah Dalmas, and major congratulations to him for becoming statistically the best kicker in Boise State history, a title I think that he already had. But now the statistics back that up as well. James Ferguson Reynolds, my goodness, he is that light in the darkness of the season. He is just having the most incredible seasons I've ever seen by at least a Boise State punter and probably a punter, period. I know the punt got it at San Diego State, did some great stuff, but my goodness, is Jonah Dalmas on fire this year. Another 50-plus yard average, 51 yards on 4 punts, or 51-yard average on 4 punts. And not just that, but this Aussie rules football player, he can get it done on all sides of the ball, just like they do in Aussie football, because this kid threw a 21-yard pass on a fake punt, on a deep fake punt. I mean, it was 4th and a long ways to go, and he threw a pass to Virgin, who has just been so great this season. He came on early in the season, but he didn't start versus Washington game, but I think he came on versus UCF. He came on early in the season, and as a young guy without any real playing experience, and he has made a major impact. And now he's catching a pass on a special teams play and trucking upfield for 21 yards. Incredible play call, special teams wise, and a great execution. So James Ferguson Reynolds and Jonah Dalmas are carrying the load of the special teams score on this one. However, the special teams average score overall is not going to be good because there were 3 big things that happened. One, the return game was terrible as usual, 17.2 yard average only, and no punt returns for Boise State. So that's still terrible. And then they did 2 horrible things. The biggest thing, and when you look at the score difference being a 7-point game, you're going to look at it as being the main focal point of why Boise State lost the game. But they allowed, at the end of the first half, with 7 seconds left, a touchdown off of a squib kick. I don't know how you let that happen. Boise State's special teams have been a problem all season long. Not in the kicking and punting, obviously, but the return game, the little things in the special teams that you shouldn't have to think about, those have been an issue all season long. Boise State has made uncharacteristic errors, unforced errors, and this was one of those. Boise State allowing a touchdown at the end of the half killed all the momentum that Boise State had turned the clock. They had stolen the momentum back. Fresno State had jumped out to a 13-0 lead. Boise State had come back. They had the momentum. They had a chance to come back into this game and to really have a chance of turning the tide and winning this thing. Boise State allowing that kick return for a touchdown not only gave Fresno State 7 points, but it completely switched the energy of that game. And it was the nail. I mean, that right there was the turning point for why Boise State lost this game. And you look at the score overall, 30-37, 7-point loss. That's it. That is the main reason. Now, again, really hope that Andy Avalos doesn't go, well, that's the reason we lost the game. That's the focal point. That's the turning point. So I don't need to do anything else. No, we lost this game because of the terrible quarterback system that Boise State has going, the multiple mistakes on offense, and the major schematic and individual mistakes defensively for Boise State. Those all contributed to Boise State being put in a situation where they could lose a game by a touchdown. But that special teams return for a touchdown was the point at which it switched in Fresno State's favor, and that allowed them to win that game. That is such a major dramatic error, and in a game of razor-thin margins, which a rivalry game versus Fresno State is always going to be, especially when Fresno State is a great team this season, and you are the underdog coming into their place at their house, mistakes like that are going to cost you the game. And when that kick return went back, I went, oh man, I really, really think it's going to be tough for us to win this one, and it was. And then on top of that, they also had a kick return on their own that they were attempting to set up a trick play called back. And this, I think, I put on the referees as well. And I'll admit that I don't know every single rule in college football like a referee does. I mean, I've never reffed a football game. So, I mean, I'm not as intimately familiar with the rule book as they are. But I have not seen that before. They called a invalid fair catch on Boise State on a non-returning player. But the issue was that he raised his hand to like say, hey, throw the ball to me, like kind of like, you know, putting both hands above the head kind of thing. He raised his hand like, hey, throw it over here. After the ball had already been caught by Dudley. Dudley had already caught the ball and was running, and then he ran over and did that. So it's not pre-snap, pre-kick, or when the ball's in the air, maybe. I still think that's pretty stupid for some guy who's completely off on the other side, that's clearly not getting the ball, to call that. But after the catch by the kick returner and he's running at field, you're telling me nobody can wave their hands? It doesn't mean anything at that point. You can't fair catch the ball after you've already started your run. So that should not be a foul. And maybe it is. But if it is, that's stupid. that is really, really moronically stupid that is a foul in the rule book. If, however, I think it's the referees, which I do, that's either way, it's either a stupid rule that needs to be addressed, or it's stupid referees. And based on the trend of the game and the horrible refereeing in the game overall, I would like to think that it's probably the referees based on the burden of evidence, the trend data from the game itself. But either way, for Boise State, that was not really on Boise State per se. That was more on the referees, but that was a bad play that ended up putting Boise State back at the 3-yard line. And then they also, and off of that, Boise State then ended up having to punt the ball away. Then they also missed the onside kick. Now, I'm not going to fault anybody for missing an onside kick. Onside kicks are notoriously hard to do. They have a less than 20% completion percentage of actually a recovery percentage. So I'm not going to fault anybody for missing an onside kick. However, they did miss an onside kick, and that's part of it. So Boise State's overall score, because of the outstanding play of Dalmas and James Ferguson Reynolds, and James Ferguson Reynolds even had a play where he sidestepped a blocker and punted the ball away and still got it out for 50-plus yards. That he's incredible. I don't have enough good things to say about what James Ferguson Reynolds brings to this team overall. So the play of Dalmas and James Ferguson Reynolds are going to raise this score from an F to a C+. But just know that every other thing that happened really puts Boise State's score down here at an F. So the incredible play of these two players raises it to C+, but overall for Boise State, F. So how did Boise State perform against my keys to the game? Give Maddox Madsen his magical moment. No, F. They did not. They went to him way too late, and that's one of the reasons Boise State lost the game. Blitz, blitz, blitz. F. Boise State started blitzing, or actually focusing, prioritizing that way too late, and they still didn't do it consistently, and that's one of the reasons Boise State lost the game. Special teams needs to pull itself together. We just talked about it. F. The 3 keys to the game, the 3 things I said that Boise State needed to do to win this game, they did the complete opposite of all 3 of them, and that is why Boise State lost this football game. And a lot of that goes back, again, to the coaching. So at this point, Boise State is now 4-5, And there are a lot of questions that are going to be asked, and I think they're important ones. And I think in a way, you never want to say that a team performing badly that you love is a good thing, but it is good that the fan base is now being willing to ask those questions. And this loss, unfortunate as it is going to force the fan base to face the cold, hard facts that we need a new head coach here in Bronco Nation, in Boise. And I think that is the direction that Boise State's going to move. I don't know if they're going to do it this year, but I would encourage everybody to go back and watch my video. I'll put the link in the description. My Who Will Be the Next Head Coach at Boise State, where I list all the candidates that I think have a strong chance of being in the discussion for the next head coach, and I list the one that I would want to be the next head coach at Boise State, because I think that we're moving that direction. 4-5 and a loss that could have been prevented. Boise State did not get blown out. This was not a loss that was out of their hands, that Fresno State just outplayed them. And any Fresno State fans watching, I'm not saying Fresno State didn't play well. They did. But Boise State also did a lot of things in this game that they beat themselves. Special teams, defense, and offense. All three combined together to hurt the Broncos enough that Fresno State's also good play was able to be enough to give Fresno State that win. So I went to about 30 minutes, which is exactly my average overall. I just can't help myself. I'm a glutton for punishment when it comes to straining my vocal cords. So thanks so much for sticking around with me. I know that this wasn't the most pleasant listening experience, and my vocal cords will be back to 100% when I do my game preview here in a couple of days. But I wanted to jump on and have this discussion because it's something that needs to happen in the moment. To really have the impact. And so thanks so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on the game, the direction of this team, the coaching staff, why you thought we lost. You can talk positives too, what you liked about this game, players that stood out, whatever you want to talk about. Throw it in the comments. We'll have a discussion. I'm looking forward to that. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, and as always, go Big Blue.